Hi, this is Pam with Jumpstart Code, and we're back with more HTML. Now, I want to go back to where we were. We were working in Replit. I'm going to continue to actually work on this, get us started here in Replit. So here's the document that we were working on. And let's go to our reference, which is Interneting is Hard. I'm actually going to replicate what we have here in the Interneting is Hard document. I'm actually in the beginning HTML, basic web pages, and scrolling down here where we've talked about basic paragraphs and headings. And so we want to do this content. So I've got my HTML. I want my title to say Interneting is Easy. And so I'm going to change that here. This is my title. Interneting is easy. Right? Then in the body, we're going to have an H1 that says Interneting is easy. So I'm going to change my H1 here to say Interneting is easy. Then we want a paragraph that says first we need to learn some basic HTML. So we're going to add that here, and I want this to be capital. So after my heading, I want a paragraph. First we need to learn some basic HTML. Then we're going to have an H2 heading, which is going to say headings. So we're going to change this H6 to an H2 headings. Now, I want to also talk about kind of separating your code. I'm going to put some blank lines in here. We're going to see that that's not going to display on the page, but just to help make my code more readable and to kind of see the sections here. You'll see there's a blank line here. Then we've got a paragraph. Headings define the outline of your site. So I'm going to use this. Define the outline of your site. And there are 6 levels of headings. All right, I want to show you guys something. I'm missing a closing paragraph. And again, sometimes it won't cause an issue, but it's still important for you to make sure that you close all your tags up properly. Okay, so let's see what we're seeing on our page so far. So we can see we've got an H1, which is in the biggest type. We have a paragraph underneath it. We've got an H2, which is slightly smaller, and we've got the paragraph here. All right. Now, that's what we end up with. Now, before we go on to lists, I want to talk a little bit about white space, about how the browser deals with that. So you see I have a few spaces here. If I put many spaces between there, you'll notice when I redo this page, you don't see all those extra spaces here. So the browser is not going to give you, it just consolidates all that space basically into one space. Okay. Also, if I were to, we put a bunch of lines here and put a paragraph here. So I'm thinking that I've got, a lot of blank space between these two paragraphs. But you'll see here, it's immediately following it, right? So one of the things that you'll have to understand, we're going to be learning about layout, how to actually get everything to display exactly where you want it on the page is a whole thing in and of itself to learn. So right now we're not going to get too frustrated with getting things to line up in a certain way. That's a whole separate set of learning that we need to do. All right, but if I did want to sort of force a space between these two, if I don't want this to be another paragraph, but I would like to go to a new line here. So if I go to this period, if I hit the enter key, thinking that I've started a new line, you'll see that I haven't, right? This is why it's really important to kind of do things, small changes, and then look and see what happens. So if I want to force a new line here, there is another tag that we can learn, which is the break tag. All right. And it is discussed further down after lists here, after a few things. Right. So line breaks. So the line break is a tag which is just a BR tag with a closing tag. So the line break is a tag that does not come in a pair. Most of them come in a pair, right? So if I put a break here, now look at the difference. Here's where I am, headings define the outline of your site. When I refresh this page now, you see that has now moved this paragraph to the next line. Okay. Now you don't want to always depend on breaks like this. If you really want this to go to another line, then likely this is actually another paragraph. So it's really important to be clear about the structure of what you are displaying on your page, and make sure that the tags that you are using are actually displaying the structure. And when it comes to empty elements like the break tag, you can either use the trailing slash or not. So here, if I take this slash off, works the same way. Now I know that sometimes that's one of the frustrating things about learning syntax, is that sometimes there can be two ways to do the exact same thing. And sometimes new learners get a little frustrated with that, wanting to have a little more consistency, but that is programming. Now, right now, we are staying focused on HTML, but we need to understand a little bit about why we're doing certain things in HTML. It's because there is the structure of your document, and there is the styling or presentation of your document. And you want to have sort of separation of concerns, and you want to leave HTML to creating the structure. And when it comes to deciding whether you want things in certain fonts or certain colors or all kinds of other things that make your web page pretty, then that should be done with CSS. Now, right now, we're not focusing on that. We're just focusing on the structure of your page. And so that's why you want to use, for example, in this case, H1 tells the browser this is a more important topic than H2. You should use the heading levels to indicate the importance of information on your page. This is also important as you talk about making your pages accessible to, for example, screen readers, making sure that you set up a proper structure to your page. Using semantic elements like that is a really important part of that. Okay. All right. I want to go on to a couple more things here. So one of the next things that we're talking about here are lists. how do we create lists of elements? So when it comes to lists, there are what you call ordered lists and unordered lists, right? So, for example, an ordered list, if you're talking about in a Word document here, when I just use the bullets here, that is an example of an unordered list. If you use numbers, that is an example of an ordered list, right? So let's talk about how to make an unordered list. So there are now two tags involved in creating an unordered list. We have the UL tag, which specifies that I'm starting a list of things. And notice that it has a closing tag that goes along with it. Then inside of there, you specify the list elements, and you use an LI tag to do that. And you notice that I'm using indenting here again so that I can understand that the list elements are nested inside of an unordered list, right? So let's make a simple list over here. I'm going to make an unordered list. You see that the closing tag came up for me in Replit. Then inside of there, let's see, I'm going to put web languages. And actually, let's make this, I'm going to make this an H2. You know, what are the web languages? So here is my unordered list, and I'm going to make a list element, HTML. I'm going to make another one, CSS, and another one, JavaScript. And by the way, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, HTML. And look at what we did. So we've got, again, a heading, and now we have started a list of elements, and this is an unordered list. So everything is specified with a bullet. Now, if I want to change and have this have a different type of decoration there's a lot of things we can do in terms of styling a list. But again, that styling is not our focus right now, right? Now, if I were to make this an ordered list, OL. Now, if I do this right now, I've made a mistake because I have tags that don't match up, right? And it kind of works. Sometimes when you do these things, it will kind of work. Sometimes it won't. But you really want to make sure your tags match up. So now I've changed it into an ordered list, and now I've got numbers instead of this. And the numbers could be also done with letters or other types of ordering. Again, that is specified using CSS, right? So we always have li elements inside of unordered lists. So you don't want to put a paragraph, for example, inside of a list. Let's just see what happens if we do that. Yeah, see, it displays a paragraph, but you know, it's not recognizing it as a part of this list, right? If you had a paragraph of text in this list, if you wanted this to actually be a part of that, then look at what we can do. We can wrap an li, we can wrap this paragraph inside of an li, right? So to make this a little clearer, I'm going to do it like this. So I've got an li that has a paragraph inside of it, and look at what I get now. Right now, the spacing is a little different because of the fact that this is a paragraph inside of here. But we can, what I've just done is nested some elements together. So I have nested a paragraph inside. So notice I start the LI, I start the P. The P needs to be closed first and then the LI. So for example, if we kind of mess up the closing of this, let's see what happens. Right? Kind of worked itself out. Sometimes they will, but it's really important, again, for you to pay close attention to what you're doing here in order to make sure that your syntax is correct. All right. So that is an LI, and that is ordered lists and unordered lists. Okay. All right, and we'll learn later on how we can change them. All right, so last little thing in this lesson, if we want to, we've got what is considered block level elements or inline elements, right? This has to do with layout. A block level element always wants to start kind of on a fresh line by itself, whereas inline elements can flow right next to each other. Okay, so let's say we want to draw attention to something inside. So we have a tag called EM, which is going to emphasize your text. And what the browser will do with that is to cause it to be displayed in italics, right? So let me I'll put an EM around this word first here. Okay. So do you see what happened? We've got this tag here. This EM said to make sure to italicize or emphasize just that word. So this tag is nested inside of my paragraph. Okay. And if you want to make something bold, then there's a tag called strong that we can use for this. So let's put strong here. And again, when you're kind of going in and editing something, then the fact that the compiler tries to help you sometimes hurts you a little bit. So you have to make sure and connect everything properly. So do you see what we did? I've got a paragraph. Inside that paragraph, this first word here, I have specified that it should be emphasized. Then here's just some regular content. And then I've specified that basic HTML should be in strong type, which basically means that it is going to be bold. All right. So in this first little section, we have learned about paragraphs, we've learned about headings, and we've learned about how to create lists. And what I really want to encourage you to do is just play. Just think of something that you want to do, or just play around with these tags and make sure that you feel comfortable with the syntax of them. Make sure you feel comfortable with nesting tags inside of each other. The only way to get good at this is through practice. So make sure you spend some time really reading through these sections in more detail, these first sections that we've talked about, and practicing all of the elements that are in here. There's one more that's in here that's just a horizontal rule. You can play along with that. And then that gives you kind of the core fundamental elements here. We've got title, we've got headings, we've got paragraph, and you've got unordered list, ordered list, strong, and emphasized text. Okay, so a good practice would be to create this page that looks exactly like this. So that should be your sort of your homework assignment that you do right now. All right. And then we will move on to some other tags in the next lesson.